Now we're going to move to the featured content of our website. So if you remember the way we used Jumbotrons in the Bootstrap chapter, we created a Jumbotron div or div of class Jumbotron, and inside the div we created a container div or div of class container. So I'm going to copy the image and create a div of class container. So if you want to go for full width, you can go for container fluid. Okay, I'm going to go for container, which is going to be a limited width rather than a full width. And inside the container, I'm going to paste the picture or the logo. Okay, let's add a comment before the logo to make sure that our code is easily readable. So that was create logo. Okay, so now we're going to move to the featured parts. Let's add a comment there. So create featured parts. So we're going to have a header, a paragraph that we're going to break there using a line break, and then a couple of links that we're going to style using the Bootstrap button class and some CSS. So let's add another requirement for our website. Let's say that we want the title to be limited in terms of space. So if we have a big title, we want to occupy less than 9 columns out of the container 12 columns. So that's our container. Okay, and we can see the width of our container there. So if the title is too big, if you go for a big title, let's make sure that the space taken by the title is less than 9 columns in medium and large devices. So to do this, if you remember, we're going to use the row class, and then we'll place our elements inside another class, which is going to be column medium 9. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So we'll create a div of class row, but it's a good practice to place the row inside another div that we can use to style elements inside the row. So let's call this div, or give it a class featured, and then inside this div create our row. So it's going to be a div of class row. Okay, and then we're going to have another div of class column medium 9, because we want to limit the space of these elements to 9 columns out of the container 12 columns in medium and large devices. Okay, so if you go for medium, this is going to be applied for medium and large. Okay, so let's add some comments there. So we are creating a row to use the grid system, and also limit space taken by the featured content. Okay. Then we are using here only 9 columns out of the 12 columns for medium and large devices. Okay, now let's place our elements inside this div. Okay, so we're gonna create a header. Let's go for H1 and let's write text there. Okay, and then we're gonna have a paragraph. So we can go for 2 paragraphs if you want. Okay, let's try that. And let's place this text in the first paragraph and this one in the second paragraph. Okay, so if we do this, we're gonna have a big gap between the 2 paragraphs. Okay, so just to avoid that, I'm going to place everything inside 1 paragraph and just use a line break, and then we're going to have a smaller gap. So if we use 1 paragraph only, then have a line break there, then we can see that the gap now is smaller. Okay. Now let's just go to the CSS file and style text inside the featured part. So first of all, we are going to set the color of the text inside the featured part. So set text color of featured content. So we're gonna access the class featured, okay. And then we'll set the color property to white. Okay, now our text is white. Also, we are going to add some space between the heading and the image. So there are many ways of doing to do that. So now let's add some space between the image and the heading. So there are different ways to do this. We can either use the margin top and apply it to the heading. Otherwise, we can use the padding top. So I'm going to go for the padding top, and so let's create space between the title and the logo. So we're gonna access the heading using H1 following the class featured, and I'm gonna go for the padding top and set that to 60 pixels. And now we can see the space between the heading and the logo. Alright, now let's move to our links. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a paragraph and insert these 2 links inside the paragraph, and then we'll style them using Bootstrap and some CSS. So let's go to our index.html file and create a new paragraph. So inside the paragraph, we're going to have a couple of links. So we're going to go for a few classes there. So you're going to use Bootstrap classes. So you're going to use the button class and button defaults. Okay. You can give the link an href if you want. Let's duplicate it and write some text there. So the first one is find out more, and the second one is download. Okay, so we've got our links there. Now we need to style them. So let's go to our CSS file. So we can style them using the button default class. So we're going to access this class and add some CSS styling, which is going to override some of the properties that are already embedded in the in Bootstrap. So we're going to go to the featured class, and then inside the class we are selecting the button default class. Okay, so first of all we're going to set the font weight to bold. Okay, also we will change the color to white. And the background color, so we'll use the RGBA function. So the code of the color that I have chosen there is 14582 and then 58. And for the transparency, I went for 0.5. See? Okay. Also, let's add some border radius. Let's set that to 10 pixels. Okay, we can see that our corners now, they are round. And also let's set some margin between the links and the other elements. So we're going to go for margin top. And I'm going to set that to 20 pixels. Okay, and also we want these two buttons to have the same width. Okay, so I'm going to go for a width of 160 pixels. Now we need to make the font bigger for our links. So to do that, we can either use the font size property or add a class to the links button large. So let's go for button large. So we're going to go back to the index.html file and add another class there, button large. Okay, and now we can see that our font size is what we want. Okay. Now let's add a bit of space between the two links. So for this, we're going to use the margin property. And since we don't have anything on the right-hand side of the second button, we can just use margin right, which I'm going to set to 15 pixels. All right. Now let's style the buttons when we hover on them. Okay. So we're going to access the featured class, and then inside the class, we're going to access again the button default class. And this time we're going to write colon hover with no spaces between the colon and the text. So when we hover on the buttons, we want to change the background color. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to use exactly the same color. Okay. But we're not going to use any transparency there. So we'll use only the RGB function, and we'll take the transparency parameter. And now when we hover on the buttons, the background color changes.